On Thursday, American basketball star Brittney Griner stepped off of a Russian plane in Abu Dhabi and walked to freedom on the other side of the tarmac. As Americans celebrated Griner's safe return home this week after 10 agonizing months, details of the deal between the United States and Russia were revealed, including why it did not include retired Marine and businessman Paul Whelan, detained in Russia for 4 years now. So what is the future for Whelan and other Americans held abroad? NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell has our Sunday Focus.
This week, images the U.S. have been demanding for 294 days. Brittney Griner seen on Russian state media on a plane headed out of Moscow toward home.
Do you know where I'm heading to?
No.
No?
No.
You fly back home.
And Friday morning, touching down on U.S. soil in Texas. The conclusion of months-long tense negotiations between Washington and Moscow after the 32-year-old WNBA star was arrested at a Moscow airport in February. She admitted to bringing less than a gram of medicinal cannabis into the country, but says she never intended to break any law. Her freedom, part of a trade for notorious Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, known as the Merchant of Death, whose release President Vladimir Putin had been seeking for years. Bout served 11 years of a 25-year sentence in the U.S. It's one of the most high-profile prisoner swaps between Moscow and Washington since the Cold War. Now some in Congress slamming the White House.
It's made us weaker, it's made Putin stronger, and it's made Americans more vulnerable.
The fear being the swap will push nations like Russia and North Korea to arrest more Americans for use as bargaining chips. It's estimated that around 50 Americans are currently being wrongfully detained by foreign governments.
I'm biased as a former hostage, but it's just shameful that governments are doing this.
David Rode was held captive by the Taliban for 8 months in 2009. He says the answer is not a blanket ban on prisoner swaps.
I think the key thing is to engage in a long-term strategy to punish and isolate diplomatically and economically the countries that are engaging in this behavior.
Among those left behind in Russian custody, American Paul Whelan, a businessman and former Marine, who the U.S. had demanded also be released as part of the deal. He served 4 years of a 16-year sentence for spying, allegations he and the U.S. strongly deny. I spoke with Paul's brother David after Griner's release.
A senior U.S. official is telling us that the administration tried everything they could to get Paul Whelan out. The Russians were telling them adamantly, one or none. How do you feel about that?
I think President Biden made the right decision. His job is to protect all Americans and to care about all Americans. And it would have been wrong for him to leave behind an American when he had the ability to bring them home.
Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittney's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up.
Putin on Friday saying he'd be open to more negotiations, too. With Brittney Griner now home and dozens of unlawfully detained Americans still behind bars abroad, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia says it's sometimes just about what's possible now.
When I personally did these kinds of negotiations, you get to that moment. Sometimes you walk away, and sometimes you think, we are better off as a nation to take this deal in hand, even though it most certainly was not the deal that we wanted.
Andrea Mitchell broke the news of Griner's release for us this week, and she joins me now live. Andrea, good morning. It's great to see you. The Biden administration, as you said, gave up perhaps its biggest bargaining chip in the notorious Viktor Bout, which raises the question of what leverage the United States has left now with Russia to get Paul Whelan home.
Now, Willie, that's such a good question. Putin has said he's open to more deals, but it's complicated. First, he wanted a Russian assassin jailed in Germany, but for Germany, that was a non-starter. Now, Putin is demanding we give up a spy for Whelan, who Russia claims is a spy, which the U.S. strongly denies. And the U.S. says it has no Russian spies to trade. But is there someone we can trade who wasn't convicted of espionage but could be called a spy? At least now the Russians are talking. Maybe we can make something work. Willie?
And the president has guaranteed the administration is going to keep working on that. Meanwhile, just incredible grace shown by the Whelan family and by his brother in that interview with you. Andrea, thank you so much. It's great to see you on a Sunday morning.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.